is reporting there. So, Jonathan Lemire, as we watched that yesterday, it was a return to, oh, yeah, this is what this is like. Donald Trump almost in rally mode, campaign rally, just listing off grievances and whining about all the injustices that he perceives against him, even complaining about the election that he won, suggesting there was something amiss with the election, saying, America, what a horrible place because we run our elections like this. Musing about the potential of Hezbollah having been there on January 6th. I guess the question for viewers, for the news media, for others is, what do you do with this when most of it is trolling? Most of it is not policy that he's actually going to pursue. But there it was for an hour again yesterday.
Yeah, a stream of consciousness, just rambling rant for an hour or so. Yes, indeed, a reminder of what it was like and a preview of likely what's to come. But I think there are a few things we should take away. And you're right, this is going to be the challenge of the next 4 years, is try to parcel through what he says and how much of it to actually take seriously. But if we, at face value, some of this stuff is very troubling and dangerous. You know, suggesting that he would use military force to reclaim the Panama Canal, which, as we have been talking about for a week or more, President Carter signed a treaty to give back to Panama, or Greenland, meanwhile, Greenland, part of Denmark, a NATO ally. You know, that would be an extraordinary step were he to actually take any sort of moves there. We have seen with Canada, he says he won't be an invasion, but he wants an economic pressure to push Canada to become our 51st state. He also mused that Wayne Gretzky should follow Justin Trudeau as the new prime minister there. We should note the great one has decided to take a pass on that. He's already put out a statement saying he's not interested. But there were more things that I think we have to look at more seriously as well. This idea of, he acknowledged that Facebook and Meta's fact-checking changes, that's because of the pressure he has put on them, and sort of a signal to, I think, a lot in the sort of social media and tech industry that you need to get on board or we will perhaps lean on you heavily. He talked, I mean, floated January 6th conspiracy theories. We could set those aside. But Mika, but Joe, this is something where Donald Trump is again reminding us and the world that this is going to be, there's not going to be consistency here. There's not going to be a reliable ally. And that is something, and we can sort of dismiss some of this as, oh, he's just talking or he's blustering. But, you know, he is talking about tariffs. He's talking about economic pressure, talking about withholding aid. And I think global capitals are also, just like us in the media, trying to sort out how to handle this. And some of them, very clear, deeply alarmed.
Well, and there is blowback from that trolling, actually, for Trump allies. You look at Canada, for instance, and talking about the 51st state or these other things. It certainly does not help the conservatives in Canada right now, who want to take control. The same thing's happening in Britain, where Elon Musk continues to interfere in British politics. All that is doing is helping a severely weakened labor government by, again, so there's always blowback to this. And, you know, Sam, so much of it is, if we are to judge over the last 4 years, signature trolling. And as David Sanger said, when pressed on Greenland, when pressed on these other things, David Sanger with the New York Times wrote this morning that when asked those questions, he responded with, quote, signature vagueness. So guess what happens? We talk about it. Everybody talks about it. Everybody writes about it. Everybody's asking, is he or isn't he? And the signature vagueness is there. The trolling is there. And he's in the middle of the conversation.
Exactly. And then it becomes incumbent to separate the signal from the noise, right? What actually matters here? Does renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, is that going to happen? No. I mean, imagine all the maps we'd have to rewrite. Impossible. So we could put that aside. But there are some things that I think materially do matter. Threatening, or at least not ruling out, military force to acquire the Panama Canal or Greenland, I think materially matters. If only because it sends a signal to Russia. Hey, go ahead. We do it. Territorial sovereignty doesn't really matter. You can do what you want in Ukraine. It sends a signal to China. Taiwan, right? And so that's the signal, that's the noise. In terms of the vagueness, you know, and we've done this for, God, 8 years now, geez. Figuring out if this is just him kind of riffing or if this is some sort of negotiating play. And in some cases, you can see the case where he's trying to, for instance, try to extract more concessions from Canada when it comes to trade, or from Denmark and Greenland, or from Panama, right? But ultimately, there is a cost to this, which is it's chaos, it deteriorates and hurts our allies, and it invites other foreign countries, world powers, to basically meddle in other sovereign nations the way that we are meddling in Panama, Greenland, Canada.
I had somebody in talking about, it was very close to Donald Trump, talking about when you listen to him, always understand, if he talks about deporting 13 million illegal immigrants, always understand that's the opening hand. That's the start of the negotiations, everything. If he's talking about the Panama Canal and where you might take it over by force, they say, I'm not saying this. I bet they say that's the opening hand. He doesn't like the fees, or he doesn't like how it's being handled. Maybe he wants China's shipping to be, have a higher surcharge on it. Always look at these things as the opening volley in negotiations.
But that's always been what Trump has done.
Right.
It's just different when you're president of the United States versus the head of a company. I mean, you can talk about acquiring Canada if you're not a head of state. I mean, an acquisition and a merger doesn't work like that as a country. But I do think this is, once again, the place that we are in with the literal of Trump and the negotiating of Trump. And we talked about this morning on Way Too Early. From a diplomatic perspective, I think Sam makes an excellent point. From a policy negotiating perspective, it's also the same. There are people on Capitol Hill that I've spoken to recently who say, all right, what happens if we all agree on something and then someone whispers something new to Trump and we all have to go back on what we've already moved down the policy and legislative line? It's not a way for success legislatively or policy-wise, but this is going to be the central thesis of the second Trump administration. I do think the best advice, and I never find political books to be instructive when they're written by the candidates, but the best advice I got back in 2015 was read The Art of the Deal and you'll understand the way that Trump functions. And again, I think we all got to go back and reread because that's where we're at again.
And let's be, really clear there. That's great advice. Actually read the first 3 pages.
Yep.
And he explains. He goes to the office, he picks up the phone, he starts talking, he has no plans, he sees what happens.
Yeah,
that's where we are.
Told you. I told you this would happen, everybody. This is who he is. This is what we're in store for America. You wanted this.
Sam, he told you.
You got it.
You were saying that this was going to be easy.
I thought it would be different.
Walk in the car.
Sure, never not listen to Eugene.
The Gulf of Mexico, by the way, was the Gulf of Mexico before there was a United States of America.
Doesn't matter. Rename it.
Details.
Just like we renamed freedom fries.
Yeah, exactly. So it is still freedom fries, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And the labor bill.
So Mika, this is one of those moments where there's. You've always got to separate the signal from the ground noise, as a great admiral once told me. But this is one of those moments where we may look back and actually, see Gulf of America, Greenland, all this other stuff. And we may realize that actually the most important part of yesterday's press conference that may have the biggest impact on American politics may be what he said about Meta.
Right.
And Mark Zuckerberg's total and absolute collapse on all fronts in that horrific video that he put out yesterday. That actually is something that may more dramatically change the landscape of American politics, at least over the next 2 to 4 years, until somebody else gets in control. And Mark Zuckerberg decides, yes, sir, overlord, I will now do what you want me to do, than anything else. This is going to have sweeping impact.
Absolutely. That's the story of the day amidst all the noise. And we're going to talk more about this topic in our 7 o'clock hour, but we're going to get to Meta next. Still ahead on Morning Joe.